Hey friends, this is Ellie Holcomb, and I'm so excited to invite you to join me and the Lifeway Women for an Advent Bible study, Joy to the World. I'll be leading you in song each week, and my friends at Lifeway Women have created video devotional content, personal study in the Bible study book, family devotions, Advent activities, and more. We can't wait to celebrate the good news of great joy found in the Christmas story with you this Advent season through this new study. Learn more at lifeway.com/joy to the world.
This is the Marked Podcast from Lifeway Women. Each episode, we'll talk about what God is doing, how He has and is marking each of us. We're so glad you've joined us today. Hello and welcome to the Mark Podcast. I am Elizabeth Hyndman and I'm here today with two of my teammates here at Lifeway, and I'm so excited to introduce you to them and let them tell you about what they do here. So we're going to start with Mickey, because Mickey, you've been on the podcast before.
I have.
Like a long time ago.
Yeah, I have, but it's so fun you all had me back, so thank you.
I know. So give us an update, because it's been a while since you've been, probably several years.
Yeah, several years at least.
Yeah.
I mean, life just keeps on going.
Yeah.
I guess kind of the biggest things that have changed the last few years. I am a mom. I think when I did the podcast, I was married, and I also have a stepson. But now I also have two little boys. So I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old. So
fun.
I'm busy,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's
and
the best.
what do you do for Lifeway? Because you do something different than you did when you were on the podcast last.
Yes, that's a good point too. Yeah, so I love events and am still, involved in events. But I am the event development strategist, which really just means that I get to help with the creation and development of new events that we put out there to help serve. And so I love the ministry of events, and it's just a blast.
Yeah. And it's such a needed role to have somebody there, because we've come out with several new events. We're going to hear about them later in the past few years. And so we need somebody to develop those and provide strategy for them.
Well, it's fun, and it's definitely a group effort for sure, but it is really neat to get to spend time with leaders and try to figure out what are those needs. What are women looking for in terms of events? And so hopefully people will hear today just about some of the exciting things we have going on.
We're excited. All right. And Catherine, is this your first time on the Marked Podcast?
This is my first time.
I don't know how that happened, how you haven't been on before, but welcome.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be with you guys. I love listening to the Mark Podcast, and I'm I get to actually be on it this time.
I know, it's so fun. Tell us about yourself and then what you do at Lifeway.
So I am the event coordinator for the Women's Leadership Training events at Lifeway, and I've been in that role for about 5 years now. And when I'm not at Lifeway, I am with my family. So I'm married to Graham, and we have a little girl named Harper, and she's 9 months old and is so fun and takes up a lot of our time these days. So
yeah. So we are so excited to have the two of you on, because you're both on the events team, which is what we are going to talk about today. So let's just give a general rundown. What all do we have going on in 2025?
Yes. So we've got the Going Beyond event with Priscilla Shire. We've done for many, many years. We have the feast events that we just launched this year. So we just had our first one a few weeks ago with Christy McClellan. We have a brand new event that we'll talk about that's launching with Jen Wilkin called In the Word. And then we also have digital events. So we have the Going Beyond simulcast that we take the live event and broadcast. And then we also have an event called Prepare Him Room, which is a virtual event, a Christmas themed event as well. So we also have destination events too, y'all. We got all kinds of
We're going
events
around the world.
We are. We're busy.
Catherine, tell us about the training events real quick. Just give us a general rundown first.
So next year we'll have 12 ELEs, and those are the pre-conference events in front of Going Beyond Live, and In the Word and Feast. And then we'll have 2 Essentials, and those are events for new women's leaders who have just been serving in leadership 3 years or less. We'll have Women's Leadership Forum, which is a really big event at the end of next year. And then we also have webinars that we offer bi-monthly, where women can just Zoom in during their lunch break and hear about different leadership topics.
And we will also have Symposium making its second appearance on our lineup. And so we'll tell you more about all of those. So, Mickey, we'll start with you for general events and tell us, give us a little more details about each one of them.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, just kind of like the distinctives and like the things that make these events unique, and also not just from, each other, but also just out there, and compared to other women's conferences and things. And so if you've never been to a Going Beyond live event, those events are so powerful. And I think one of the main things, I was just talking about this week, is prayer. So there's a really incredible 2 different prayer experiences that happen during Going Beyond Live. So in addition to Bible teaching with Priscilla, in addition to, obviously amazing worship. So her brother, Anthony Evans, leads the worship. And then also just these wonderful prayer times. So I feel like that really helps set that apart, because I've never seen those prayer times anywhere else. Have you seen something like that?
I have not. Yes. It's something that you can experience via the simulcast, but being in the room is just a different experience as well, because it is just very powerful, and it's a moment where it's unifying, I feel like, for the women that are in the room, and it's something that is just really cool to experience in person.
I love it too, because it's such a part of who Priscilla is, that it's been a part of her events for so many years, even long before War Room, which is what a lot of people met.
That's true.
A lot of people were introduced to Priscilla via War Room,
which is a prayer themed movie.
Exactly.
So,
right. Yes. For those of you who haven't seen it, but you should.
Yes.
If you haven't. But I think that, that's just such a part of who she is, and that comes out. And so that's something that really makes Going Beyond special. And then a feast. So this is a brand new event that we launched with Christy McClellan. And if you haven't done any Christy studies out there, you guys, man, Christy has made the Bible come alive for women in a way that so many have never experienced, because she teaches in the Bible through its original historical and cultural context. And so things that you have always read a certain way, you're like, wow, I had no idea that that it really is speaking to us in this way. And so she is carrying that into Feast. And for the woman who's maybe never going to get to travel to Israel or go have, that kind of experience, I feel like Feast is making women kind of almost have that experience to a degree. And so so we're really excited about that. So the Feast events, Laura Cooksey does the worship, and she and Christy have been friends for over 20 years.
It's so fun. If you don't follow Christy McClellan on social media, she posted this whole journey about after their first Feast event. That was during the airline situation that we had a couple months ago, and it just their journey back home was so fun and so funny, and Christy documented the entire thing on Instagram, and it is fun to see.
Yeah, it is funny. They just have they're polar opposites, and they sort of are just they just know it and love it
and embrace it
I love it. And so so Laura's doing the worship. She's just such an incredible, humble, but extremely gifted, worship leader. And so that women, after our first event that we had, they were saying, gosh, we loved the connection between the teaching and the worship. It just was all very intentional. And I would say a bit of a slower pace in the event is kind of what I've been hearing, that women were this felt more like Sabbath. It felt more,
I mean, that's the whole feasting on his word. That's where the title of the event came from. Is Christy's always talking about just she's doesn't this just make you want to eat it? And so it's very much a feast, and I feel like a feast is one that you sit down and you're going to spend time together. So that makes sense. That it's a slower pace and more restful. And I think, goodness, don't we all crave that?
Absolutely. And there's some more in that event. It's also a little more interactive, and there's a little, more experiential to some extent. Like you're going to taste some things, see some things.
Right.
You're not sitting at physical tables, but
Yeah.
kind of having a little bit of that experience. And so that is something. So this year, all those events, she's also teaching from Luke 15.
Okay.
And so you're really getting to hear from these 3 different parables and hearing those in their original, historical and cultural context. And
That'll be so beautiful.
yes. And so it's a powerful event. Everybody really needs to check it out.
Yes.
And really, if you have not done a study with Christy, like Jesus and Women, amazing.
Yeah.
So
and Luke in the Land.
Yes.
So
Oh my
you could
gosh.
prepare by doing Luke in the Land, and then you'll
Yes.
be right ready for Luke 15.
You're so right. That's perfect. And actually, I was going to talk about that in a minute. So that's perfect. And then also, I'm really excited. This is the first time that we have been able to talk about this. But
Yes.
we are, guys, we've got an event with Jen Wilkin.
So excited.
It's
Yes.
so awesome. So In the Word is a brand new event that is launching in 2025. And we are still in the beginning. I mean, obviously we are launching the event, but there's
Right.
still some time. So we are still working with Jen, building out exactly, what the event is going to be. But what I love is that the name of the event truly is exactly what it is.
Yes.
Like it
I mean,
is-
Jen Wilkin,
Yes.
that's what you're going to do. It's
Exactly.
just be in the Word.
We're going to be in the Word, and you are going to be deeply in the Word, entrenched in that throughout the entire
Yeah.
weekend. And so really the heart behind In the Word, as Jen has helped us to kind of cultivate that and shape that, is centered obviously around that. We will have incredible worship, and I'm really excited about this too.
Yes.
So Sandra McCracken is going to be the worship
So
leader.
cool.
I think it's going to be so beautiful and just, I think, so reverent and just a different kind of feel. Maybe, also as we were talking about feast, like maybe
Yeah.
a different feel and
Right.
pace to it as well. So I would think a little more stripped down, a little more acoustic kind of feel
Yes.
at the event. Something that Jen had told us that, was really a part of her heart for this event is she was like, I really want women to be able to hear and see the women around them, like to feel, like to realize like we are partaking in this together.
Right.
And so sometimes, you got the lights are down low kind of a thing, but she's like, I want like you to be like, this is Elizabeth, and like
Right.
Elizabeth Mickey are
Let me look at her notes real quick. That's what I always do.
yeah. Yes. What is she?
I'm like, oh, I missed that. What did you have,
Yes.
Mickey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to just really focus on that. So we're just
Yeah.
really, really excited. And for this first year, she's going to be teaching on wisdom.
Okay.
And so just helping us to, to learn like more about that. And because we're buying a lot of lies from the world.
Right.
And sometimes we think our wisdom,
Yes.
but there's so much truth to be really found throughout Scripture.
Yeah.
So really excited. It is beautiful. Like you guys have to check it out and see
Yes.
just all of the way the event looks and all that. We're just so just grateful to get to partner with Jen. So yeah. Excited about that.
So those are like 3 different events with 3 different women who are all very different, which is one of the things that I love about Lifeway Women. Like our Bible studies, our events, our training, is it does like point to, hey, we're all very different. We all have different giftings. We all learn differently. We all have different interests, and that is okay. We can all come together and be unified even amongst those differences. And I think like when you look at our bookshelf, somebody has said before, like, where do I fit in on the Lifeway Women bookshelf? And I'm like, you kind of don't. And that's the best thing about it, is because we don't have somebody that is like your, the way that you teach. And we need somebody because we know women learn that way.
Yeah.
And so I love that these 3 events are so very different, but they're all pointing to the Word. They're all pointing to God. And so, yes. And I love that they'll be unified, or we will feel that unity when we're together in the room.
Yeah,
with us.
absolutely. And there's just something so, well, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, but just something so powerful to be able to be in the room. I know, and we've talked about that over the years. I mean, I know we're still years outside of COVID, but to be able to look at someone and be handing, I think we just don't take that for granted in the way that
I
think we
agree.
did. I think we took it for granted. So
I agree.
Just excited about all of those.
Yes. Okay, Catherine, tell us about our training events.
So first I want to talk about You Lead. And You Lead is the pre-conference event in front of the events Mickey just talked about. So in front of Going Beyond Live and the Word and Feast. And it's that Friday before the event. And 8:30 to 3:30 of your day, and it has breakouts for leaders to come to and listen to and be equipped where they are. But I think the important thing to talk about with it is that you are a leader.
Yes.
So every listener right now who's listening, you are a leader. If you have influence, then you are leading. And I think that sometimes is a scary word, like leading and leader. And I don't think I fit in that category. But the truth is, you're spending time with your family, you're talking with your coworkers, or planning a Bible study, which means you're influencing those around you. And so at You Lead, we have 3 different categories that the breakouts are broken into, and they are biblical literacy, personal equipping, and general and ministry leadership. And so no matter where you're at in your leadership journey, you can come to You Lead and customize your own experience. You can choose breakouts in different categories, and then you can walk away with more tools in your tool belt.
Yeah.
And so that is, and I think I once heard someone compare the You Lead to the Richmond event, and they said You Lead's like the private lesson before the concert. And I think
that.
that's the best way
I
to
love
say
that.
that. And so, and you can bundle those events, which is great too. So you can make a whole weekend out of it,
Yeah.
and come to You Lead and have your little private lesson, and then go to the concert afterwards, whether that's, in the Word with Jen, or, Feast of Christy, or Going Beyond with Priscilla. So that's You Lead. And then we also have Essentials. We have 2 Essentials next year, and that's for the new women's ministry leader. So if she is serving in her church 3 years or less and has never been to an Essentials before, then she can come and for 2.5 days be poured into by some of our trainers. And our trainers, group of women that we have, a team that we have, Lifeway Women trainers, and they teach at You Leads and at Essentials and some at Women's Forum too. And so, but these trainers are seasoned, experienced leaders who have been working, whether in the marketplace or in the church, for a long time. And so they'll pour into you. And the cool thing about Essentials is that you just have to pay your way to get to Essentials, but then we take care of everything else. So we'll take care of the event cost itself, take care of the lodging, we'll take care of meals while you're with us. But it's just a time to really pour into that new women's ministry leaders. It's only 25 women per event, so per Essentials. And so it's just really sweet time to just get to rub shoulders with women just like you, who's in that seat for the first time, and then be poured into. And then we also have Women's Leadership Forum. And a lot of times that's referred to as You Lead on steroids, because it is full day. So it's Thursday and Friday. It's full days of general sessions with some of our authors, and then also breakout sessions with some incredible leaders and trainers. And so we have over 20 breakouts to choose from, and it will be in Nashville. And so that's really good to bring like your team, or to bring your volunteers and go to that and get equipped. We also have our webinars that I mentioned earlier. And so that you can just Zoom in or do your lunch break. And that is bi-monthly. And so we do that every other month. And we have a topic that we'll talk about with about 3 or 4 of our trainers. And we record that. We'll upload that on our Lifeway Women YouTube channel. But you can watch that live and chat with other women, ask questions. We sometimes do giveaways, which is always fun. And so, but some of those topics could be like, discipleship, or navigating, mental health as a leader. That's when we just had. So we have different topics every year, and you can join us for that as well. So that's a quick overview of what to expect for the leadership training.
And the webinars are free, correct?
Yes, they are free.
Yeah.
You just have to register. And to register for any of our training events, it's really easy. So you can just go to lifeway.com/training, and everything I just mentioned is on that page. And so we can put that in the show notes. And you can just access all those events and easily from that page.
Yes. And I know we're talking about 2025 events, and we will have Forum in 2025, but this episode is coming out before Forum in 2024. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about who specifically will be there and all of that, because women can still register for Forum in 2024.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So we'll have Jen Wilkin, Elizabeth Woodson, Kelly Minter, Steve Cuss, and Julie Woodruff. They're going to be our general session speakers. And then we'll have over 25 different breakouts. But like Caroline Saunders will come teach. Dr. Lily Park will teach. So we have a lot of, we actually have a lot of Life Women Academy people teaching for us. I don't know if you were talking about that a little bit.
Yes,
I'm really excited to have them. But we'll have like Dr. Julia Higgins. We have a panel for how to write and publish, and that will be from some of our people at Lifeway, which I think will be really interesting. So yeah, we have a ton of breakouts. You can find them all on our website, but it's going to be good. Our theme this year is whole for March 12:30. So love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And really focusing on that, like how do you become a whole leader so you can pour out to others, because you can't really pour out to others well if you're not pouring into yourself. And so it's really hitting both pouring into yourself but also pouring out to others from a whole leadership perspective.
Hi, friends. I'm Jennifer Rothschild, and I want to invite you to join me for the Prepare Him Room virtual event this Christmas season. This time is going to be filled with worship led by Michael O'Brien, plus encouragement and teaching that is going to draw your heart to Jesus. So whether you're watching on your own or with a small group or hosting the event at your church, I know that you will discover the joy of Jesus' birth all over again. Register today at lifeway.com/preparehimroom. That's lifeway.com/preparehimroom.
I love that. And you mentioned Academy, but we have, we have Academy. They're not really events because you can kind of just, you do them by yourself and you can do them anytime. But this year we're going to have, in 2025 in the summer, we're going to have Symposium. And we had that once before when we first launched Academy. And I describe it as the Bible nerd party. Like it's very academic. It's very like nerdy, but in the best way. Eunice Chung, who's one of our teachers for Lifeway Women Academy, said, y'all are like the cool nerds. And I was like, that is the most, like, that is such a beautiful compliment. Thank you so much. That's what I've lived my life all along, trying to achieve cool nerd status. So yes, it is a fun event, and it is, Jen Wilkin will be speaking at that, but we'll also have a Q&A session with her and some of our Academy teachers, and then we'll have breakout sessions by a lot of our Academy teachers as well. And the theme of this year's is going to be how to teach the Bible. So it's all about like writing and public speaking and all the different ways that we teach the Bible, maybe not formally, like maybe it's more teaching your kids the Bible as you interact with them, or leading a Bible study that is written by somebody else. And so we're going to cover a lot of that and how we just teach the Bible every day. And so I'm really excited about that. It is back by popular demand. Last time when we had it, everybody was like, okay, when's the next one of these? So we're going to have it in 2025, and it'll be in New Orleans at New Orleans Baptist Seminary. So we are excited about that.
I love it. I love, like, I mean, I know we talk about these events like all the time, but there's something really neat about just like hearing like Catherine, like in your heart, and remembering like who these events are for, and just the equipping and realizing that you're not alone, you know, like, and even what you just said, that's new to me about Symposium is like, I kind of like, I don't know that I realized that it would be something like, for me, like I don't usually teach Bible study, but like even what you said, like teaching your kids, I'm like, oh wow, like that's me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's so seeing yourself in that. And that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation, because sometimes we're quick to sort of think, oh, that's like, maybe that's not, that event isn't for me or geared to me.
Right.
But obviously it is. So I love that.
Yeah.
That's
so
exciting.
all kinds of events for all kinds of people, but everyone is welcome at our events, like at all of them. Like you said, Catherine, with the You Lead, like a lot of times we think, oh, I don't lead like a group of people, or I'm not a women's ministry leader, but there are still like you could come and learn about biblical literacy, and that is for every Christian, not just for the woman that is in a like paid position of leadership in her church. And so I think that's a great point that you made, Mickey, of like, this is for everybody.
Can I say something else, Elizabeth? I realized when we were talking about this that we've been talking about events that you travel to.
Yes.
But I didn't really say specifically about our digital events.
Oh, yeah.
And I would love to say that because obviously we love these events and we want women travel from all over to come. And sometimes we are right in your backyard. And then other times, people do make
we're at a fun girls trip destination.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it does have more of that feel. But we do have digital events. And what's so awesome about that is that those are ones you can host in your church, in your living room, right where you are. And so, we mentioned obviously Priscilla's event, Going Beyond, and the opportunity to have the simulcast of that. Right. But we also have Prepare Him Room, which our first one was this last a fall. And so starting December 1, again this year, you can stream Prepare Him Room, which is a virtual event. And this year, Jennifer Rothschild is our teacher. We're really excited about that. And really, this event was birthed out of learning that a lot of women were saying we would like to have an event around the holiday season, which was actually a surprise to us. We'd never done that before, but we continued to hear that, and they were saying we were interested in that. And so, being able to create something, and if hearing Prepare Him Room, it really is designed to be a space like amid the holiday rush, like all the things that, there's so much going on during that time, but to be intentional and to set that time to really like connect with the Lord. So it's a bit different. Like Going Beyond is an all day simulcast. Prepare Him Room is designed to be just a couple of hours. So it's just an evening event. It does include worship. And Michael O'Brien is going to do the worship with Jennifer Rothschild this year. But it's just, the churches who participated last year said it was just a beautiful experience. And some people did it in living rooms across their community. So they just, they registered as a church, but they had women kind of scattered and just, in homes throughout. Homes. And and there's just a lot of ways that it's customizable and, but just a beautiful thing. So I wanted to mention that because it is special because it is a holiday event, but it's also one that you can do in your home.
Yeah. And my church is actually, I think, going to do it this year because we don't have a full-time women's ministry leader at our church. And so, but we do want to have a Christmas event. And I was like, oh, well, this is the perfect solution because we don't have to like plan anything extra or like take, I mean, we will still have like some fun food and do all of that, but we don't have to have like try to figure out who can speak or anything like that. We can just watch Jennifer Rothschild. And so we're excited about that. But that kind of brings us to my next question is how can women incorporate our events, whether it is a digital event or a live event, how can they incorporate that into their women's ministry like calendar or their small group calendar? Maybe they don't lead a women's ministry, but they lead a Bible study or they get together with their friends to just kind of read through the Bible or whatever that may look like. Catherine, we'll start with you on that.
So for youth leads and for Form, I would say it would be so beneficial to bring, whether that's your Bible study group, your small group, your women's ministry team, or just your ministry team in general, just women from your church, because I tell them at Form and at YouLead, the pro move is to divide and conquer.
Yes.
Because you have all these breakouts to choose from. And when you're able to go to all the different breakouts with your team, or maybe that's your like even mentor or mentee, then you can come back and discuss it. And then that way, when you leave, you can continue to have that conversation after the event is over with and say, okay, remember when that breakout speaker said this, or when she challenged us to think this way, how can we do that? And it's not just falling on you. You have people that can surround you, but you can also just carry that conversation on afterwards. And it can encourage you when maybe you're having just a hard season in ministry, or just maybe even in your Bible study group, like you've had women drop out, or just having just difficult time getting women to come. When you have other people to surround you in that community aspect, who has gone to the same event, it's almost like that like camp feeling. It's that accountability afterwards. And so I think that would be a great way to just incorporate that into your church calendar. Another really good idea, and I've seen this done before with some women who have attended our leadership training events, is that it's a way to invest in their volunteers. And so I know a lot of times we're looking for ways like, how can we pour into our volunteers? How can we better equip them? And sometimes that looks like, sending them a birthday card or giving them a gift card at Christmas time. But one wonderful way to do that is to, pay for their event, or even maybe pay like half for the event, and allow them to go to that to be equipped to continue to pour out and lead in the area that they're leading in. And so those are just some of the ways for our leadership training events that you can incorporate that into your calendar. We also have like large women's ministry groups that will come and bundle it. I talked about bundling before, where we'll be in Athens at the end of August. And we have one group, and they're bringing 50 women from their church, and they're bundling it to go to Going Beyond Live afterwards. And I'm like, what a great way to just, get away, unplug from everything, and just be with like-minded women, and to just be encouraged and equipped, and then just be and then go to the Go Beyond Live afterwards. And so you can do that as well. And how they're doing it is they're having women buy tickets. Like, they bought the bundle tickets, and they're having women buy that through them. And I was like, that's just a great idea. And they're making a whole little trip out of it. They're about 30 minutes, but they're getting vans, and they're just all going to go together. So it's just, there's different ways to do it. But those are just some of the ways I thought of.
And I like how you mentioned mentor-mentee relationships. I think that's great for the training events as well as for the regular events. So one thing that you said about your whole team kind of knowing similar information and remember when they said this. So I recently read this book, and a couple of people on my team read it, and I was like, hey, I need us to all read this book. It was like a book on conversations, and I was like, I need us to all read this book so that we all have the same vocabulary when we're talking about this kind of thing. And so that way we all know oh, hey, you missed this step, or here's how I would handle it based on this. And so I think that with our training events especially, that's really helpful. But I also think it's helpful with our other events too, because when you're in community with people and you're like, hey, remember what Christy said, or remember what Jen was saying about this, let's incorporate that into how we read Proverbs now, because we've learned this about wisdom or whatever it is, or we're reading through Luke, and remember what Christy said about this. I think that's really helpful.
I think that's really interesting, Elizabeth, because I'm catching what you're saying. But the idea of having a common language, and I hadn't really thought about how events help to do that. Yeah. They help you to sort of have a common language among those that either you lead or that you do life with. Right. But I can see that totally. And even thinking about Feast with Christy and how she's teaching from such a different lens that, it's such exposure to women who maybe haven't had that. But if I'm having this huge experience of seeing the Bible in this certain way, I want everyone around me to understand it too, right? Yeah. And so I think that it is such a great way to get that kind of common language and experience that really it's impacting you, but you're able to share it, with them. So
my small group is reading through the Bible chronologically. My whole church is chronologically this year, and it's so funny because we will reference Tara Lee Cobble's she's part of the group. Well, Tara Lee said this when we come to these confusing passages, because we several of us have access to Bible Recap, or we listen to the podcast, and so we're like, okay, this is what Tara Lee says about this. Or they'll turn to me and be like, hey, I feel like you mentioned something about doing a Bible study on the Kings, you edited Trustworthy, and that has to do with the Kings. So what can you tell us about this? Or what can you tell us about this? And so just having that whole hey, remember, and I can't remember everything. Right. Yeah. So it would be helpful to be what did we learn in that at that event about this passage? Can you remind me? I remember something about this, but I don't remember the whole thing. So that would be helpful.
When you need a certain truth that you learned together, and you're no, remember what we learned reminder. That this is who God is. Yes. Remember that we were together. We heard that. We learned it together. I think that I love that you shared that, and that kind of, it just reminds me of how much I love this ministry and this work and how important it is. And I wanted to say, just from another perspective, I think the connection between like our events and our Bible studies is just so amazing and unique. And so I think one suggestion that I would have is to look at our, geographical map of where we have events and whether it be training or one of our enrichment events. And if there's one that, that's easy for you to come to or makes sense, or you want to go to, you want to make the travel to get there, to plan on doing a Bible study either on the front end or the back end of the event. It's actually a really great either kickoff or bookend to something.
I love that.
So, for instance, if you were like, man, we really want to do Revelation with Jen Wilkin,
right?
You could do that 10-week study like on the front end, like, and wrap that whole thing up with like a big party by all going to the event together, going to In the Word and experiencing that together. Or on the flip side, you could also go to the event and kick that off, and then that be the sort of your ramp up and to then leave and have all these new truths and then meet as a group and go through the study afterwards. Yeah. So I feel like it just makes so much sense. Honestly, either way, it just sort of depends on what works and your schedule. But that's one way that I would encourage people to think about the events, that it's really part of that overall, kind of just like plan that you have for your group. It also works really well with Prepare Him Room because we have an Advent study.
Right. And we had an episode on that. And so Ellie Holcomb talked about the Advent study because she was part of that. But we thought that same thing. Like you host Prepare Him Room maybe at the beginning of December before things get wild in everybody's schedules. And then you give everybody an Advent study or, that's included in the cost of their ticket to the event maybe or something like that. And so then you can kind of, because it is hard to meet over the Advent season, but we do have like group guides, so you could get together via Zoom or just like check in via text message or whatever works for your group. But I think that's a great idea.
Well, and even I've heard of women doing this too, but even if you're doing a study, let's say your sister lives in another city and you want to meet up to go to this feast event, and you're both doing Luke in the Land, and you're meeting virtually, and doing the Bible study every week, maybe together leading up, and then you get to go and be together in person. Like, there's just creative ways where I think even if you don't meet in person regularly, like the events and the Bible studies are all connected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we love that. Okay, I'm going to ask each of you, this is the Marked podcast, so I'm going to ask each of you, what is one thing that has marked you in your walks with Christ? And it can be event related or not event related. So, Catherine, you want to go first?
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and mine is event related. So the very first youth lead I went to, I was serving in girls ministry, and it was actually 10 years ago this month.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And I actually still have the notebook.
Look at you. She's showing us the notebook, you guys.
Look at that graphic design.
I know.
But I kept it because it was such a great resource. But that I remember preparing for, it was a youth lead in front of the Living Proof Life. And I didn't really know what to expect. Our girls ministry team was going to this event and for a youth lead. And we were like, okay, we looked it up online. We looked at who was speaking. We were trying to think through which breakouts that we would attend. And we just were like, okay, we don't know what the Lord's going to do at this event, but we do really feel like he's moving and we don't know in what way. So we were like, okay, we're going to fast together. So it was the middle school girls director, high school girls director, college girls director, and then our overall next gen girls director. And so we all just were fasting and asking the Lord to just move. And we didn't know what that looked like, but we were just okay, we want you to lead. And oftentimes the temptation in leadership is to rely more on the strategy than the Spirit. And we're we want the Holy Spirit to lead us and guide us. And so we get to the event and we're all kind of nervous because you walk in, you're just what am I going to expect? And we all went to different breakouts. And then afterwards, we met with one of the trainers. And she just spent time with us. And we're just a bunch of young girls who don't really know what the Lord's doing, but we love the Lord and we want to pour into teen girls. And we didn't really know what he was going to do. And I remember just that moment of her just meeting with us, and there's all this other stuff happening. They're, cleaning up the event, and they're getting ready to get back on the road. And she's just spending this intentional time with us out in the foyer and praying for us and praying that the Lord would do immeasurably more according to his spirit inside of us. And so, and just that moment, no idea what the Lord would do in the future, but like in that moment, just saying, okay, Lord, like, this is yours. We have no idea. We're hopeless without you. And so we're just going to give everything. We're giving our ministry over to you. We're giving any way that you're going to lead over to you. And then the Lord just used that and took us, that group of women, like on the biggest adventure we could ever imagine with girls ministry. We got to work together for a few years, and we're still all best friends to this day. And now working as the event coordinator for the youth lead. And so I look back at that and I'm like, that marked my life in such a big way. And I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what this event was, but just being poured in. And I kept the notebook that I showed y'all earlier because I kept it because I would refer to it when I needed ideas or when I was like, what did that person say? But then I kept it as just like a visual reminder of what the Lord did at that event. No idea that years later I would be coordinating it. So that event really did mark my life, and it continues to through other stories that I could share with you all day long of how the Lord has used our leadership events in women's lives. It just continues to encourage me and like shape and form my own like spirit in how he continues to work.
I love that. Mickey, what about you?
Yeah, it's funny. Like hearing Catherine share, I was going to share one thing, but I feel kind of led to share something different instead. So I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
A lot of things have shaped us and marked us, but I even sitting here and hearing your story, I was like, wow, it's really neat to think about how God does do that and mark us and shape us. So when I was in high school, my youth minister's wife asked me to coordinate. I say coordinate, but to plan a girls' retreat.
Oh, I love
and
it.
then that led into a fall retreat. And it kind of started to become this thing that I got to be involved in, and really from everything. I mean, we picked, we helped design the t-shirts and we picked the speaker, and we had a lot of ownership over it. And I didn't really think about that until a couple of years ago. And I made this connection. I was like, wow, I started doing that in high school, having no idea that this would end up becoming literally such a huge part of my life that events would be.
Right.
But I learned so much in that because someone said, hey, I think that you could do this.
Yes.
And gave me like ownership over something. And through that, I learned like obviously incredible leadership and, skills from that. But also it led to like a heart for not just events, but for like serving other women, for discipleship. And I think that really, it kind of is making me choked up now I'm thinking about it, but that really led to just a life of loving, serving with other women and planning things with other women.
Yeah.
And that was something that, maybe at the time she didn't think it was a big deal, but it was something that truly has now, shaped and marked my life, and something that I think regardless if it's my paid job or not, I think I will to some capacity events and obviously ministry with other women is going to be part of the rest of my life. And so, I think that, it just takes one person and different people to pour in and say, hey, you can do that.
Right. Yeah. And what I love about those stories is that both of them talk about another woman just encouraging you. And Catherine's was for a short time. And so it didn't necessarily mean, hey, we're going to have coffee every Tuesday for the rest of our lives. It was just this short moment where she was encouraging you. And then Mickey's, yours was somebody seeing something in you and saying, I think you can do that. And that walk was longer with her because she was part of your church. And so I just want to encourage women as we end today to see the women that are in your life and maybe bring them to an event as we wrap up. And we would love to see you at one of our events in late 2024 or 2025. If you see us, tell us hi, say hi, and tell us that you heard us on the Mark podcast. So thanks, guys, for being with me today.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Marked is a production of Lifeway Podcast, produced by Aaron Franklin. It's recorded at the Lifeway Podcast Studio in Brentwood, Tennessee, and engineered by Donnie Gordon with help from Nathan Howard. Edited by William Hall with art by Leanne Dance. And I'm your host, Elizabeth Hyndman. Meet me back here next week. If you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on social media at Lifeway Women. Today's show notes will be posted at lifewaywomen.com/marked. If you enjoy the show, leave us a review.
Hey everyone, I'm Christy McClellan, and I want to invite you to join me for my new Bible study, Luke in the Land. Over 7 sessions, we'll journey through Israel and teaching videos that take place in places like the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, the Mount of Olives, and even Jerusalem. As we study snapshots from Luke and the places where the events took place, we'll learn the important historical and cultural context that reframes and enriches familiar accounts of Jesus' life. Join me as we walk together and encounter the living God who is better than we ever knew. Learn more at lifeway.com/Luke in the Land.